ダメだ、忘れたくない。忘れられるものか。みんな行かないでくれ。もう一人にしないでくれ。嫌だ、嫌だ、嫌だ。
Well, here we are, the last game of the PS1 era, and the game of the duology we actually got on the PS1. And the idea for this game came from a story draft of Vincent's Shin. Was it a situation where they had a completely different idea and wanted to make this draft its own game? Or the Breath of the Wild situation, where they had too many ideas for DLC that they eventually made it into its own game with Tears of the Kingdom? Well, outside of DLC not existing back then, something I really wish we could go back to with gaming, but no. Scriptwriter Satomi Tadashi-san got the impression that the game needed an alternate point of view, so instead of playing as Tatsuya, we took control of Maya. Now, as I said in the last video, there was a chance of the remaster being released in the West, because initially, they were going to put both games on a single disc, though that wasn't possible because of the storage limitations of the UMD, so both versions got split into two separate games. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. And dead memes aside, I'm not entirely sure why the remaster for this game wasn't released outside of Japan. If I had to guess, I think it may have been the release window. The PSP port of this game was released in May of 2012, very late into the PSP's lifespan, to the point that the Vita was already out, as that released in Japan in December of 2011. So Atlus probably didn't care to localize the game in the States, and just ported the PS1 port to PS3. I'm not sure if any other country got that version, but for English speakers, this hasn't stopped fans from working on a fan translation. I haven't kept up with it, but I believe at the time of writing, it was recently completed. If you're not a fan of the PS1 port, then there you go. PSP emulation doesn't take that much power, and either way, I think it worked out perfectly for me because I would have been looking at the PSP version of one of these and the PS1 for the other. So for the sake of my videos, I guess it was a happy accident. Though, is it even worth it to play this game? Well, on a gameplay front, I definitely say yes. But let's dive in a bit deeper by staying in this rumor-filled world, this time with Persona 2 Batsu.
Minna, 私のことは早く忘れなさい。
In this new world, we take control of Amano Maya, a reporter for the magazine called Coolest. She's recently been having odd flashbacks of a deja vu boy, even gaining a random bruise. But that doesn't really matter because she now has a new assignment. A rumor of a joke or curse has been going around. If you call your own phone number, you can put a hit out on someone. One of these victims has a friend in Seven Sisters High School. Maya is forced to go there for an article, but this time without her camera woman, Yuki. But she's in luck as her best friend, Setazawa Urara, tags along to make the work go faster. They do have a matchmaking party to go to, one that they won't be able to attend. The police are at the school as well to investigate the murders, and while Maya and Urara are there, they find the school's principal dead. A detective working the case, Suo Katsuya, rushes in to start the investigation. All three of them thinks this girl, Yoshizaka Anna, did it, thanks to her having a slight grudge on Principal Harding. But when they chase after her, they run into a demon. The more pressing issue is running into Joker, as Maya was marked for death. However, he gives Maya 2 handguns and tells her to summon her persona. She has no clue what this is, but when the demons attack, all 3 of them awaken to them. Katsuya awakens to the persona Helios, Urara awakens to Callisto, and Maya, once again, awakens to Maya. That's still not confusing, but after this, Joker knocks him out, and their minds are transported to Philemon's dimension, where he has seen better days. He asks them to save this side, and when they catch up to Joker, he's trying to kidnap Anna, but when the group interferes, Joker summons some demons, and after defeating them, they're knocked out once again. But someone does defeat Joker, and we see who that is. Maya's deja vu boy, Suo Tatsuya. And he gives Maya a school emblem, and tells her to spread a rumor at the Kuzunoha Detective Agency, to have it protect anyone from the curse. I feel like that would cause more panic than anything else. Feel like people would start attacking Seven Sisters students. But regardless, the group does just that, and since they want to look more into the rumors, the returning Tammy tells them that she knows someone that could help them, and they're pointed towards an internet cafe. This is where we actually meet Baofu, a Taiwanese man that lives in Japan, that's also a rumor monger. But more importantly, he's also a persona user. He awoke into the persona Odysseus long before the events of the game. But when they share information, it's learned that the Joker curse was spread through the TV. The originator of all of this is a man named Sudo Tatsuzo, the current Japanese foreign minister. There was a string of arson cases 10 years ago that was rumored to be done by his son, Sudo Tatsuya, who's been locked up in a sanatorium. And for the sake of my sanity, even though he does not live long, I'm just going to call him Natsuya from here on out. Maya is the one who's being hunted, so it's her choice to investigate this further, and she takes initiative by burning the school's emblem. Heading to the sanatorium where this guy is being held, we find a couple of things. First are dead members of Tien Tao Lien, a Taiwanese mafia working with Tatsuzo. And the second is a revelation that Natsuya is Joker, and he wants to right the wrong of this side's existence. He sicks his demon dog after them, but tells them to head to the Aerospace Museum if they live. Baofu was ahead of that because he tried to go after a specific member of Tien Tao Lien, but when they get to the Aerospace Museum, an elementary school is having a field trip there. But we also meet Kurosu Jun. He's not sure why, but Maya is familiar to him. That does not matter, however, because second verse, same as the first, the building is set on fire, causing us to rush to save the kids and get to the roof. And with everyone saved, they get up to the roof, justifying Jun as being held captive by Natsuya, asking him to lead, just like before. We're saved by Tatsuya and rushed into the blimp, primarily because it's rumored to still be able to fly, and we take off, only for Tatsuya to give Jun the controls, as Natsuya wants a round 2. He's killed, the blimp fails, and we go our separate ways for now. Katsuya goes to the higher-ups about Tatsuzo, but ends up getting taken off the case for his troubles. Urara goes to the gym to try and forget about the day, Baofu does what he does best and wiretaps, while Maya goes to her office to get some more information about all this Joker stuff. She ends up getting chewed out for her troubles, but hears on TV that anyone who does a Joker curse will turn into a Joker. And since Urara did the Joker curse, this happens to her. Her target was Maya before he asked, but we get her patched up at the Velvet Room, probably the only time it's heavily relevant to the plot in the PS1 games, and after a phone call, the group is pointed towards a club where a friend of Anna was kidnapped after turning Joker. They run into a man named Young Pao, an assassin for Tien Tao Lien, who's working for the new Japanese government. We don't get much information out of him, as he brings out the kidnapped friend, Katayama Noriko, with her turning Joker. After purging the Joker out of Noriko, Katsuya receives a phone call from Deep Throat. Well, not really, the dude actually goes under the alias Sneak, but that's not really as fun as Deep Throat. But regardless, we go to the park to meet the man, and he also wants to bring Tatsuzo down. But they need hard evidence to do that. Deep Throat gives him a photo of 2 other people investigating all of this, and by spreading a rumor, we can take one of 2 routes. This involves the returning Nate Nanjo, thought it was Trinity guys, and Ellen Kirishima. If you go with Nate, you're running around in a sewer system his family paid for in connection to Tatsuzo. Anyone who's turned Joker is taken there and experimented on, and the returning Mishima Ikichi is there trying to save his friend. Though we've learned that Guido Sardinia is back from the dead, and he's running research on the Jokers there. This makes sense as SEBEC is an acronym for Seiki Electronics Biological Energy Corporation. And no, I'm not saying any of the ands in that acronym because I'm pretty sure that sounds stupid in Japanese as well as it does in English. This part ends after getting all the test subjects out of there. If you go with Ellen, the group investigates a woman named Wang Wang Chizuru, a fortune teller who's about to go on TV to spread something big, though the group gets trapped in a black and white world. But with the help of a returning Brad, not to mention Yuki, they escape and fight Chizuru. No matter the situation, Tatsuya is there to get the group out of a jam, but when returning to the base of operations, everything is wrecked and Nate is down a couple of workers. Tatsuzo and his new world order knows who they are, and they're sending a message. The group tries to interrogate Sasaki Genji, the manager of a music group called Muse, due to his connections to the NWO, but he gets infused with an energy called Kegare, which is what turns people Joker. Hell, he was even running a seminar to extract it, but since he's out of commission, there's not much the group can do but to spread the existence of the NWO by rumor, which is actually playing into their hands, as when Deep Throat calls Katsuya to once again reveal more information, we find out by Police Chief Shimazu that they needed the NWO to be known throughout the masses, as the NWO plans to use a spaceship called Torifune to protect Sumaru, as the rest of the world, doused in Kegare, are wiped out thanks to dragons. When trying to find out where Tatsuzo is, we get delayed thanks to a bipedal weapon, the X1 unit. This is important because the group tries to crash Young Pao's payday, but Tatsuzo wants to kill two birds with one stone. Now that was a mistake, as our mobster tells the group where to go, and after a shootout, they eventually confront Guido and Chizuru, as they just broken the last stone to free the dragons. We're unable to stay long, as these ruins are about to collapse. Tatsuya obviously was there, and before he goes, Baofu reveals that Katsuya was saving money for Tatsuya. And this gets Tatsuya to reveal the truth. Because this isn't the Tatsuya his brother knows. Care was going to the wrong person, and they go to Mount Iwato to learn that this is an alternate world created due to this.
I just wanted my cheese.
Now the group essentially tricked Tatsuya to reveal the truth, and all of them, minus Nate or Ellen, goes to Torifune but are too late. Tatsuzo was there, but he's already lifted the city and called the dragons. When the group catches up to him, it's revealed that he went a tad bit madder than usual, and after putting him and a being called Gozen down for good, they're transported to a similar domain as Philemon. We are now in Nyarlathotep's world, and he wants to play a little game. If all three of Tatsuya's friends remember the other side, it will cause destruction throughout this world. The group prevents that by confronting their shadows, and after defeating Nyarlathotep for the final time, Tatsuya decides that he's going back to his side, wanting to rebuild his world. And with that, this side's Tatsuya decides to become a detective, asking Katsuya for advice. Baofu starts up a manhunt agency with Urara, going back to his actual name of Kaoru since he's Japanese, not Taiwanese. Lisa, Kichi, and Jun goes to the shrine because they have some inkling of a memory there. And Maya continues her life, running back into this side's Tatsuya as he rides off into the sunset, ending the game. If I'm going to be perfectly honest, the story itself wasn't good in my opinion, as it felt somewhat disconnected from the story. It's nothing bad, as there were some epic moments, particularly at the end with Tatsuya and Maya just straight up giving the middle finger to Nyarlathotep and cutting him down. Really, the only thing that I could not care for is Nate and Ellen returning. Their inclusion actually bogs the experience down for me, for the same reasons I had with Yuki and Jun from before. Yuki was in the party longer than Jun, getting more development due to that, to the point that I had no clue why Jun was one picked by Nyarlathotep to be Joker. I did receive a comment saying that it was explained during some supplementary material. I am thankful that it was explained in some way, however I don't like including external material in my videos as it should be in the game proper. Since I do want to make more tokusatsu videos at one point, it's an issue I've had with Super Sentai and Power Rangers. Power Rangers more than anything else, since I've watched that more often. But continuing the story of Turbo Power Rangers movie with, Turbo the season, not making Clash of the Red Rangers a proper two-parter in the actual show, Engine Daishogun appearing in the human world, and Jackpot Striker coming out of nowhere are things I do not like. Hell, Jackpot Striker actually pissed me off so fucking much. Part of it was because I never watched that movie for that season, and the other reason is just, well, he just came out of nowhere, like what the hell? Okay, post-editing Revolver, this part of the video is going to be a little less professional. I don't have my blanket behind me to cancel out some noise. I have the heater on, which normally I don't when I record videos normally, especially not now. It's like 19 degrees. If you don't use freedom units, it's negative 7.2 repeating degrees Celsius. But the reason why I'm cutting in is that I like watching through my video. I don't think I've actually explained myself properly. What I'm trying to get at is that you need to take into account of people who can't or do not know about all this external stuff. I think comics are fucking notorious for all this. I think a lot of event comics for like the big two, like DC and Marvel, have like a crap ton of tie-in issues to the comics themselves. And that's the stuff I don't like. That's why I brought up Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, when talking about Turbo the season, Clash of the Red Rangers. That one gets a slight pass since that was a TV special, as I thought I mentioned, but apparently I deleted one file by accident. It's why I brought up Engine Dai Shogun, because for Go-Onger's movie, those three characters have made up Engine Dai Shogun. Very long story. Zords are alive that season. Popped up in the human world for some bizarre reason. I forget the issue. It's been a long time. Well, the reason I should say, it's been a very, very long time since I last watched Go-Onger. And if you cannot tell, I'm doing this off the top of my head. Hopefully I can edit this to make it sound like I'm not. And Lupin versus Pat, Jackpot Striker. Again, I already mentioned it like not 5 seconds ago that he just came the fuck out of nowhere, which confused the shit out of me because I only saw Jackpot Striker once in promotional. And again, never watched the movie. But you got to take into account of people who don't watch that stuff. Like same thing with a lot of other stuff that I'm a big fan of. Like one day I want to make a video, since again I want to do more toku and anime. One of my favorite animes of all time, Ultimate Do-Re-Mi. Both of its movies are apparently canon, which shocked the hell out of me when I watched the final season. Well, not the final season, Dokkan, I should say. That's technically the fourth. Even then, the timeline for that's fucking weird anyways. But the reason why I brought up a deleted file is because even though I cannot stand the season of Kamen Rider, and you guys will find out, you guys will definitely find out soon, Kamen Rider Agito did this better because it did take into account of people who could not watch the movie, because Agito and Gills, their second and final forms respectively, yes, debuted in that season's movie. However, they did have proper setups in the show as well to reintroduce them. Kind of idiotic was Agito, but then again, I've never liked the Shoichi, I think his name is. Worst writer ever. Second to Shinji from Ryuki. Gonna be honest, hate Ryuki too. Dragon Knight's a fuck ton better, but we'll get there when we get there, trust me. But you just have to take into account of people who can't, do not know, or just flat out do not want to go through supplementary material. That's what I'm trying to get at. Again, as I said in the script, I'm grateful that Jun being Joker was explained. It's still an issue for me because, again, like even though the PSP does explain Tatsuya's little backstory thing, you have time dedicated to the wrong things, and that's where my confusion comes, because I want to know this stuff. Like, this stuff shouldn't be exclusive to supplementary. If it's 100% important to the main plot, it needs to be in the main plot itself. But hey, I'll get into a bigger rant whenever I start going through Tokusatsu stuff as well. Primarily with a feature series looking back at the 30 years of Power Rangers, but regardless, this is the end of post-editing Revolver. Fuck my life. 5.5 minutes, but hey, it could be worse. It could be the video I made for Dino Cosmic Fury. Fuck. That's a season I'm not looking forward to revisiting, but regardless, it doesn't matter. I love Yuki as a character, but the development she got should have gone to Jun, and the same applies here to Tatsuya. I feel like he should have been in the party sooner rather than later. The dude is a loner for a good reason. He did not want to forget his friends, and that's what Nyarlathotep was able to play on. Meeting his friends was a possibility, but not remembering the past. And thanks to that, he was haunted on what could happen. So when the Joker curse starts up, he knows what's going on, and he wants to fix it. Doing all of this on his own to a detriment. He made sure to go to the school and give Maya a school emblem to try and protect her. If it wasn't for Jun being at the wrong place at the wrong time, then he probably would have gotten an emblem as well. Same with Kichi, since both of them do not go to Seven Sisters. And Lisa, well, she was probably told to keep an emblem with her at all times. Tatsuya wants to protect them, but he also pushes them away. This also includes his own family. While not being the same Tatsuya doesn't even want his help. He's a sad character due to this, but thankfully Baofu does act as some sort of a mentor to him. Now that may be the wrong word to use, but Tatsuya did ask him if being an adult is hard, which at first, Baofu says that there is nothing good, but after facing his shadow, not to mention laying the smackdown on Nyarlathotep, Tatsuya is told that there are good things as an adult, words that he probably already knew after this adventure, but was still nice to hear from someone that he wanted advice from. And as the Tatsuya we know goes back to his world to try and rebuild it with his friends, this one asks Katsuya for advice on becoming a detective. The other side version of Tatsuya most likely changed this side's for the better, creating a stronger bond between the brothers. Speaking of Katsuya, he's a great character, an older brother who's worried about his younger, but due to what happened to his father, he decided to take on a different career path. In fact, he wanted to become a patisserie. Katsuya went straight to the police force, wanting to clear his father's name, even getting the information he needed when one of the higher-ups couldn't take the guilt anymore. Funnily enough, it was actually his father's best friend that gave Katsuya the truth, and whatever that incident was, that fractured the Suo family, and Katsuya, he wanted that family bond back, though most importantly, making sure Tatsuya as well, even saving cash for him for whatever career path he wanted to charter. And now that I think about it, that was most likely a part of the lie to get Tatsuya to reveal the truth, but hey, I wouldn't be shocked if Katsuya was actually saving cash for Tatsuya. Urara is a character that didn't get that much screen time, but I'm glad she's here regardless. She's a woman who has horrible luck with men, and I honestly don't understand why, because she seems like a great catch, but she looks out for Maya. She may hate how her life is at the moment, but she's there for her best friend, doubly so when she put a hit out on Maya, thanks to the Joker curse while drunk. I'm not entirely sure why she becomes Baofu's partner, but hey, it's a new beginning for her as she got some sort of a bond with him. Though speaking of our Taiwanese but really Japanese party member, the dude is also a sad character. While willing to tag along, he didn't want to fully rely on his new team, not even trusting his own persona, not buying the "thou art I and I am thou" spiel that they give when one awakens to the power. The only reason why he's on the team is to get back at Tatsuzo because he has ties to him. He lost his old partner thanks to his investigations when he was still a prosecutor, and wanting to avenge her by killing Tatsuzo and young Pao. When he gets a shot on the latter, he's willing to get himself killed to take out at least one of them. He does grow to trust the others, having them jump out to take out that X1 unit does help somewhat, but I do like him regardless, especially acting as mentor of sorts to Tatsuya and taking back his old name. It's funny that he went into the underworld with all this wiretapping and hacking. I guess all he really needed is some friends to pull him out of hell. For the returning, I felt like Nate's arc was done and over with in Revelation's persona. Even then, the addition to his story here is fine. He eventually finds out that his father was backing Tatsuzo, even creating this water treatment plant for him. Hell, the biggest driving factor for Nate returning is Guido coming back from the dead. And I don't think he would have been an issue if Nate didn't shit-talk him in the first game. However, he has grown to a man that could actually be the #1 person in Japan, but I think we already saw that with the first game. Ellen, on the other hand, I have to be honest, I don't like her. I'm only 5 chapters into the manga adaptation of Inbanroku, as the author who wrote that manga included all 9 characters, but I just don't like her. And to be honest, I can't tell you why. Outside of genuinely liking Chris as a party member, I've always turned her down in any playthrough of the Sebek quest. Here, she actually became model, but has some issues with it. The primary reason is her smiling during the job, feeling fake to the masses. And I believe due to that, she has doubts about a promise she made with Naoya. You know, boy with earring, who's never had an earring of the first game's PS1 localization. Even with the first flashbacks at Mount Iwato, showing that she had feelings for him, not wanting him to go to whatever it was he was going to do. It's neat to see, but I just don't care. If I'm going to be honest. If this game ever got a remake and I was on the remake team, I would exclude her from the fucking narrative, as I wish it was just Nate in the story. And I think that's due to the fact that I just had more time with him, even if I took both for the Snow Queen quest. Then again, I don't like to count that since I do not like the Snow Queen quest. There's just more baggage going the Nate route. Hell, that stalker Ellen had, while unfortunately to be expected, because that's reality with people in general, doubly so as a celebrity, triply so as a celebrity in Japan, as from my understanding, parasocial relationships are even worse over there. But that plot just felt out of nowhere. I was going to record my own footage of the route, but after watching the route online, I just simply do not fucking care. Now, I do apologize for any Ellen fans out there, but she just never meshed well into the narrative in my opinion. Hell, I keep forgetting the antagonist of this route is an actual character. Maybe one day I'll go through that New Game Plus, because shockingly that did start here, and see what this route really has to offer. Now, while I say Nate and Ellen's inclusion as party members felt pointless, this could have been the writer's way of justifying a send-off to the PS1 characters. Chris, Mary, and Brad do show up here as well. Kinda forgot Yuki wasn't a party member in this game, and I'm sure Mark is somewhere, though he may have went to America in the actual text. Kinda forgot since I haven't really played the spec quest on PSP, and I don't know this Alana you keep mentioning, so I don't know why you're asking. All these guys are shown at the end for a friend reunion, with Naya showing back up. I'm kind of bugged that they didn't give us an adult Naya, but then again, I felt like all this was pointless to include. The one thing I do have to mention is the localization. The same team that localized this game is the same as the first, though I do believe we have more people on the team. But yeah, they did a better job than before. They kept the same names for returning characters, even having Kandori's name from the first game acting as a cover name, though I heavily question why they changed his name to Guido Sardinia. I'm not gonna elaborate on why. Google it yourself, and if you're like me, you'll laugh your ass off on how fucked this name change is. Now, the biggest reason why I mention this is due to my confusion with Nate's name change. Yeah, his name got changed again, with his last name going from Trinity in the first game back to Nanjo. I don't understand this because he was the only one in the PS1's localization to have a last name. It's not a deal breaker, as I do appreciate more faithful localizations, especially considering we're still getting shitty ones nowadays. I believe I mentioned I think I turned my friend into a girl before, right? I mean, thankfully that got fixed, but they still needed to make sure American players at the time knew who these guys were, so I do give it somewhat of a pass. However, this is just a nitpick, because again, it was a little weird seeing that name again in the PS1 ports. Really wish localizations were better nowadays, since they're going back down the drain, and my Japanese isn't the best, unfortunately. Hopefully that gets better one day, but more importantly, hopefully we get better localizations one day for anyone who can't learn the language. But then again, you guys did not come here to hear me talk about localization choices, now did you? Well, no, you didn't. And by looking at the size of this script, I am currently shitting myself because I hope it's not as long as Innocent Sin. Regardless, it's funny to see Nyarlathotep waiting until the group meets each other once again. Considering the dude is a master manipulator, he could have started things up sooner than later. But I guess he has a sick sense of humor, especially with him getting Natsuya to be a part of the Joker curse, and recreating things that happen on the other side. He rewrites the rules, but still makes things fair, because with someone with the title of Crawling Chaos, you would think he wouldn't even bother. Though I do wish he was more involved with the game's plot. And before fan wars start before the final video of the series, you'll see why, I 100% understand that he's there no matter what. It's just, Tatsuzo is boring. He does jack shit, and remember when I said Nyarlathotep is the best way to do a villain that just waits? Tatsuzo is the exact opposite. As the antagonist for a majority of the game, while referenced, he has no presence. I don't know how you get worse than both versions of this guy, but yeah, he's not impressive. Wanting to remake the world is not a bad idea for a villain. Other media uses that same motivation for their villains, but I just get no background on him, and I do not care as a result. I'll give him this. Way better than his equivalent in Persona 5 Strikers. That's unfair, as I hate that game, but hey, at least we fought Tatsuzo here. Though yeah, maybe if Nyarlathotep was actually this Gozen thing, I probably would not be complaining that much. Again, he manipulates, so it would have been a cool idea if that was the case. The only other big issue I have with the narrative is with Maya being silent. And let me clarify what I meant when I talked about silent protagonists. Giving them a personality is not a bad idea. Them being silent is what allows you to fully become the character. The dialogue choices also help with this, but it means jack and shit when the characters themselves start talking. Spin-offs like the anime adaptations, the Q games, Arena, and the dancing games don't count because that's not the purpose of these guys in those games. I already know who Maya is, and I think that's part of the reason why I feel disconnected from the narrative. I know who she is, I know what she's going to talk like, but because she's not talking, that's why I can't get into her skin. How that didn't happen with Innocent Sin, I could not tell you. Maybe it's because Tatsuya's shadow was just a minor road bump, since they thankfully didn't go fully into any supposed character, while here, it's technically a new Maya, but she has the same exact personality as the other side, so I just can't get into her mindset that easily. This is the only Persona game that I heavily wish the protagonist wasn't silent. But regardless, the story had potential, but at the end of the day, I didn't care. At least not until the end. I do like the characters here, but to be perfectly honest, I put up with all of this because I love the gameplay here. The battle system itself isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. One video I watched described it as archaic, but this is much better than the PSP's battle system. As I mentioned beforehand, the PSP battle system felt pretty slow since just like the first game, no matter the port, you had to select everyone's skills before initiating the turn. Now that worked in one because the camera did not pan over every character in a very slow fashion, and in the PS1 port, if you wanted to double check the enemy weakness, instead of hitting circle, you can hit triangle to clear out your selections. Now it sucks because you can't see them without clearing it out, but it's a faster way to do so, and in the remaster, hitting the shoulder button will allow you to see the weakness during selection. While in Innocent Sin's PSP remaster, there's no way to know unless you back out your selection, and that causes frustrations. The main issue with the PSP remaster is its slowness, but now this doesn't really matter as the battle itself is completely automated. You select your moves beforehand, and when you're satisfied, select battle and watch the beatdown. At any point in time, if you're not sure what the enemy is weak to or resists, hit circle and select analyze. I love this as I reserve the Wikia for bosses because they require more prep than your normal encounter. Not only that, but the auto battle feels natural, and this is what the whole entire system was based on and allows me to fuck around a little more. Not in the sense of finding out in the bad way, but in a good way, as it does allow me to think about my party order. Hell, it's probably the reason why they went back to this battle system in this game's remaster. While I'm not looking at that port, it's great to still have this battle system going. If this version got a release in the West, then it would be 100% welcomed. There is an option to make it like the first game, but I personally don't like it because it breaks the pace of the battles too much for my liking. Fusion skills do make a return, and with how things are, I can easily test waters to try and find these. Unless you're looking at a guide, you'll probably come across these by total accident, and the biggest issue I've had with them in Innocent Sin is unfortunately still a thing. If you set up a fusion spell unknowingly, that takes priority over the skills you wanted. Say you have like 3 enemies on screen and all 3 of them are weak to fire, and you have 2 characters cast Maragi, or in this game's localization, Maha-Agi. But depending on your turn order, you may have set up the spell Blazing Hell without realizing it. That's single targeting, and you've just extended the battle time. Now, as I mentioned, I personally do not mind it, however I can see multiple people getting pissed because of this. Fusion spells are a pretty neat idea, but I think they're better well handled in the next game, more specifically its vanilla and FES releases. Though we are not on 3 yet, in fact I cannot wait to start editing that because I got lucky with its intro, and you'll find out what I mean then. But fusion spells are dependent on the personas the protagonist has in that game, and not what moves the party goes to trigger. This isn't a bad system, but it can be really annoying when a character eats shit and he can't perform the spell you wanted. Not saying this is the end of the world, it's just a personal preference, though I love that this game is making me really engage with the battle system. Triply so since I use the contacting system, and to make a short story short, while I still do not like contacting, it is very simplified. Each character only has one contact ability, whether that be making speeches, interviewing, fortune-telling, interrogation, a death stare, talking about fashion, and even blackmail. This makes getting those tarot cards and contracts much easier, but you can still mix and match. Though keep in mind, you can't always do that because of the personalities of the characters. If the text says that a couple of characters do not like each other, then do not even bother, because whoever talks to the demon will be the first character selected. There are more contact options you can discover when talking to party members at specific points in time, but I'm not a big fan of contact options being lost. If you go to the prison by Kasugayama, the same one where Gas Chamber practices, talking to Katsuya reveals that he knows how to play a lute. At least I think. I know whatever it is, it's a string instrument, but if you don't talk to Urara at one point in time before she turns Joker, you can't perform the Flamenco de la Passion. This contact option is just Urara performing the flamenco. And you would think that you can still get this contact option, but from what I can see, there's no way to do that. And instead of stealing footage of it, the clip you're seeing is from an anime called Ashita no Naja. Check it out, ending was rushed as hell, but I highly recommend it. Though sticking to this, I do not like missing out on this stuff. Thankfully, you can still get through the game pretty easily without these options. Hell, any demon I contacted, I was able to solo them with Maya, and I love that I can do that even though I hate contacting. Though still, I hate being locked out of these, but if I'm not, please let me know, because that will invalidate this criticism. We only got 2 more games in this marathon where you kinda have to utilize the system a little bit, but we're not there yet. Thankfully, this is a game where the contact system goes into a coma, but the only reason why I'm talking about the contact system is because this fucking game got me to actually think about my personas. You have to change out your personas regularly, because they will stop growing. I didn't talk about it that much beforehand, but in the PS1 games, while personas have a level, that doesn't change. They have ranks instead, and that caps out at level 8, meaning these guys aren't going to be that useful since they can't learn new skills when maxed out. It's a non-issue if you decide to really strategize with the bosses, and this is what got me going to the Velvet Room more often. I was actually buying new personas to exploit the weaknesses of the bosses, because this game is asking me to actually engage with its mechanics and I love it for it. I still believe I should play the other ports of both of these games at one point to fully determine if the PS1 is the best way to actually play the 2 duology, even if the PSP port of this game has the same battle system, but fuck, it really seems like it is. When I start selecting my skills, I'm thinking carefully about who to target. Even having to change things up from time to time, having to go into the strategy menu and pick out new skills. Instant Sin's PSP port has never asked me to really think about my approach to things. Just hit them with the same exact spells, then you have beaten the game. Again, that's on normal, but because of how slow skill selection is, I still can't recommend the PSP port of that game. Again, the PSP port of this game keeps the battle system here, and I do question why they even bothered changing Instant Sin's battle system. Though I'm talking way too much about Instant Sin right now. However, I think that's just because this game has actual challenge. With any encounter, there's an actual bite to this game's bark, as these guys will kick your ass if you're not careful. The only downside is that I feel like they're a little too high level. I wasn't able to get everyone up to snuff as easily as before, and this is taking account of B1 with Naoya and Mary being higher level than everyone else. It's just something I didn't feel worked that well. I don't run from encounters unless I'm getting my teeth kicked in, but I swear sometimes you really don't get the chance to get up to snuff. Regardless, I do appreciate the base difficulty of the game. While I may need to grind, I can sit back and really think about my approach. This is probably the only Persona game that you really should use buff skills. This is more of a thing in mainline, but buff skills aren't really needed in a lot of RPGs in general. At least I think. It's been like years since I've last played an MMO, which I think was either Toontown or EverQuest. You can still get pretty far without them in mainline. It took me until like Pale Rider, I think, and Nocturne to actually start using these. Though that first fight against the X1 unit, buff skills help to make that fight go a little faster, especially since these units are only weak to lightning skills and I've only had Zio available to me. This game is perfectly playable without them, but you may want to start using them, especially with boss fights like Captain Shimazu. A good chunk of bosses come with lackeys to make your life a living hell, and this fight is no different as he employs SAT units. There are 4 of them and they can all cast Hypnotic Wave, a skill that has a 44% chance of putting a character to sleep. I would have thought aim shot would have been the biggest issue considering that's an instant kill, but thankfully no, as that instant kill only has a 20% chance of going off. Shimazu himself isn't that big of an issue now that I think about it. He can still put the party asleep with Tranquilizer, but he only targets one enemy with all of his attacks. The SATs are the worst enemy here, but then again, you actually like taking those. But that's only due to Hypnotic Wave targeting everyone. Buff your party, and killing those lackeys will make this a non-issue. Any Joker boss can be very terrifying to go up against because of the skill Old Maid. This will force a random party member to cast the skill Joker. From what I can tell, it's medium almighty damage to all allies. And it can really hurt because when I play the PS1 games, I go all in on dexterity, or technical as it's called here. More SP is great, but that's also how much damage you'll do with magic. Yeah, I almost had a heart attack anytime Maya was the one who casted it, but still, I find these bosses to be fun. Again, they asked me to actually engage with how the game wants me to play. I used the Wikia to prep for bosses, and when I saw that I would fight more X units, I immediately went to buy personas that have Zio skills. I can't really do much about the Murasama copy, however I'm set to get my teeth kicked in. Hell, going up against Kondori was a boss that really put my skills to the test. He resists everything and comes with 4 X2 units, but look at the damage I did after casting Makakaja on both Maya and Balfu. They annihilated the X2 units and helped me take Kondori out. Seriously, I was shitting myself when fighting him. Not only does he have a spell that halves your current HP, but he has another spell, Wheel of Time, that deals heavy almighty damage, and it gets stronger the more he uses it. When he went down, I fucking celebrated. These bosses are hard, but they're not impossible. Now that I think about it, since I'm now on the Metal Trio at the time of writing, this is what I wanted from Instant Sin. I have never touched the PS1 port for that previous video, primarily because the emulator I use does not recognize my PS5 controller for some reason. Maybe I need to download a new PS1 emulator, but yeah, that need to stop and think of what I should do is exactly what I wanted. Who I need to have what persona, and what moves I needed to put on them. I just love the combat in general. And this part, I'm literally writing right after defeating the final boss. And damn, Nyarlathotep was one of the biggest challenges I've ever faced in a JRPG. Like I said in the last video, Nyarlathotep should not be a 360 no-scope, and he definitely is not here because he put my fucking balls in a vice, and I only won because Maya's ultimate persona reflects almost all magic. This game really gives me that challenge that I really expected from an older game, though I imagine if I played the PS1 port of Instant Sin, I would get that same challenge I got in here. While frustrating at times, the battles are fun, and again, if you don't want to deal with the auto battle system, the game will allow you to make the gameplay just like P1. I wouldn't recommend it mainly because the game is built around the auto battle system. Now the rumor system is still a thing here, but just like before, I'm not a fan of it. It's only required like 2 times in the game. The first time is to get the school emblem protection rumor and to pick what route you want to go through. There's a little more to it this time around because you do have to use the system to actually get armor and such, but still, I barely bothered with it. Now that I think about it, that's probably the reason why I was getting my teeth kicked in at times, because it wasn't until late game when I started to actually spread around these rumors to get stores to sell armor. But even then, I think I would rather just have armor shops sell this stuff right out of the gate. Hell, I don't even think there's any armor out on the field. That's how bad you can be starved for this stuff. If the rumor system was there to enhance what options you had, okay fine, that's just like the last game and I didn't have any complaints. But it's not. And it's a little hard to explain because again, I barely, if ever, spread around rumors. Now, exploration is a little more in-depth from the last, but thankfully, it's still pretty straightforward. This is the last game to have fully designed dungeons up until Persona 5, and I say they go out pretty well. I don't have save states this time around since I'm playing off my PS3, but just like before, you don't have that far to go to get back to where you were, if and when you drop or teleport. With the sole exception being the undersea ruins, as some of the drops will take you a good while to get back to where you were. In most cases, you don't have far to travel to get back to where you dropped. However, I don't have much to say about the dungeons. This game is just like the previous because they're pretty good. Straightforward, no bullshit, and keeps the awesome boss warning that Instant Sin had. I didn't mention this like an idiot, but this game will warn you if you're at a boss. Before, the persona will sing or like wail to warn about one. And I understand 9 times out of 10 it's fucking obvious where you'll encounter a boss, but still I love this mechanic. Sometimes it isn't obvious, primarily the gold gem because the boss in that dungeon is right at the start. Okay, that probably was a horrible example, but still, I love that this game gives you a warning regardless. Outside of that, still have an issue with persona swapping to use skills like Basumdi. Like, it's nothing horrible, it's just annoying, and regardless, the gameplay is still fun, and it's really enhanced by some pretty solid graphics. Alright, this part may be short, but yeah, the game looks fantastic, as it really should because they still have the legendary Kanako Kazuma-san as character designer. And shit, I said it in the last video, but this dude has a fantastic art style, and you can definitely see it with a lot of the persona and demons he created, because that's what he's best with. Nyarlathotep in his true form looks so freaking cool. It's definitely the definition of crawling chaos. Not to say the human characters aren't bad looking, because all of them still look great. Not a fan of Tatsuya's new outfit. I mean, I get he hasn't been to school, but I swear he looks like a discount Power Ranger. Since the presentation is exactly the same as before, the cutscenes themselves are still great. The camera moving around and the dynamic character portraits, not to mention the character sprites themselves emoting, help to keep the game alive. Really, the only thing I don't like is the game's UI, primarily because it's all gray. And before someone asks why I didn't say anything during any video of the first game, well, there was an industrial look to Revelation's UI, primarily during battles, and they did put designs over the UI in the PSP Remaster. Here, it's just a gradient, and granted, this isn't a deal breaker for me. It's just more of a disappointment than anything else. What isn't a disappointment are the FMVs, because they definitely got better from the last time, which was already a huge step up from Persona 1's FMVs. They added more animation to the characters themselves, which isn't bad, but they can be a tad bit stiff at times. The first one to come to mind is Maya burning the Seven Sisters emblem at the bar. Her arm looks like they literally just moved the cell. And again, it's something bad, just something I noticed. But hey, that really doesn't matter as all the other FMVs are fantastic. Really impressive for this point in time, and in hindsight, it really shouldn't be shocking as the game was released in the year 2000, when the 6th generation of consoles were on their way in, as a 5th generation were on their way out. They should look great at this point, and honestly, they do. And I said it once and I'll say it again. This is a reason why I say game companies should just reject realism and embrace weird. The soundtrack itself is still as awesome as ever, and you know you're in good hands with the intro to this game. It's so good that it was kept when the PSP Remaster was released. It's more of a remix now that I think about it. The visuals actually sync up for the most part, up until both intros' respective pre-choruses. The original escalates things with the dragon roaring in the background, as the PSP version is more calmer. I also think one of them is longer than the other, but hey, that really doesn't matter as both incarnations of the song is perfect, as the rest of the game's soundtrack. The voice acting, on the other hand, at least on the American side, is not. Some of the voices actually fit, like Natsuya's English voice actor, as he fits the stereotypical crazy guy perfectly, especially when he starts talking about the
Voices! You can't run from the voices!
Though I will say I love Urata's English actress because she sounds exactly how she should if she was American. Really, really fucking love her.
Don't underestimate me, you bastard!
Battle cry. Balfu and Katsuya, while they have fitting voices, they have pretty piss poor direction at times. Balfu warning the others to get away from Noriko before she turns Joker didn't really have that much of a punch that it, really should, and Katsuya, well, he just sounded stilted more than he really should. Maya, well, she just sounds way younger than she really should, like the line
Whoop-ass completed!
makes her sound 13. I don't know why, that's just how I'm interpreting the voice. Though none of that compares to the weakest link, that being Tatsuya. And man, oh man, I did not think he was bad at first. His actor sounded older than what I really expected, but some of the lines at the start was, decent. When we get to the final FMV, that's what sank all of it. Granted, a lot of the voice acting we got in the 5th generation of consoles wasn't always good. The biggest examples are,
You were almost a Jill sandwich.
Hey, Zap! Why must I fight you? We are not enemies!
Die, monster! You don't belong in this world.
What the hell was that delivery? What?
However, there are good performances in other games of this generation. Just look at Echo Knight. But this line delivery is so wooden, you can drive it through Dracula's heart like a stake and kill him.
Wow, that one hurt.
Now you see, I can't even tell if you're being sarcastic or not. But regardless, while I still have issues with Tatsuya's Japanese actor, the dude fucking kills the scene. I used it at the beginning for a reason, as it actually sounds like he's tearing up at this moment, which I do not blame him. As stated in the story section, he did not want to forget his friends, so shouting no going into that new world is understandable. Other than that, still not a fan of his acting. Same with Urata's Japanese actress, Kanako Noriko-san. While not bad, this doesn't really sound like the right voice for Urata. Now I say this, but I actually wish she did more in the acting sphere. Noriko-san only acted in one other production, a movie called Keibu Tsuge Kyosuke Chokoso Hotaru no Shikaku. And while I'm still studying Japanese, I know I fucking butchered that, but regardless, it is a shame because she does have potential. Then again, I'm getting my sources off stuff like IMDb, which isn't always accurate. It's like citing Wikipedia, we're taught not to do that in school for a reason. At the end of the day, however, while slightly unfair because game acting really wasn't taken as seriously as it is nowadays, the Japanese voices do take the cake, but overall, how does this game stack up? Well, when taking an account of story, gameplay, graphics, and sound, Persona 2 Eternal Punishment gets a 6 out of 10. Now, do not take this as a game being bad, as the gameplay is pretty solid throughout the whole entire game, if a little too Dark Souls at times. It's primarily the story that drags it down for me. The game actually gets me to really focus on the mechanics it wants me to use. While I hate contacting, I bear with it because I have to swap personas no matter what to get through the game. When it comes down to the story, I just didn't click with these characters as fast as I really should have. They're not bad by any means, as I do like the characters, but when looking back at the Instant Sin cast, I was able to click faster with them because of the cooldown moments the game offered. There's not much of any cooldown moments where characters really just talk to each other here, and it wasn't until the end where I started actually liking the characters here. And again, I do like them, but I really wish we did not have the return returning P1 cast, as I feel more time should have been given to Tatsuya. I personally don't think anything would have been lost if they were removed, and I'm not trying to do the whole my way is better, it's just the ending felt like it crept up on me. Not in a good way, but a bad way, because I thought there was going to be like an hour or more with Tatsuya, but no. And for this last part when talking about the story, and I know I really should have brought this up in the story section, but could you play this game without playing Innocent Sin?
The answer is yes and no.
Each Persona game, no matter what, is designed to be standalone. Innocent Sin will give greater context to this game's plot, but it's not essential to fully understand what's going on here, as the flashbacks help to get the player up to speed, although having missing context to certain spots. I would say if you want fuller context, then yes, without a doubt, play Innocent Sin, but if you do not care, then jump right into this game. Speaking of, the only legal way to play this in English is with the PS1 port. It is on the PS3's PSN store for as long as that will say live. I don't recommend buying a physical copy unless you make poor financial decisions like I do. But hey, if you know Japanese and got a Japanese PSP, then there you go. The PSP port did get a fan translation, and from what I can tell, that is a definitive way to play this game. The battle system and difficulty is kept in that version with a better UI. The only downside is the character cut-ins. I didn't mind these in Innocent Sin's PSP port as they were quick and easy, but the ones in this game's PSP port isn't. Thankfully, you can turn them off, which I highly recommend you to do. And with that, this was the last game of the PS1 series. It was actually fun going through all these, and I wish Atlus paid them more attention, doubly so since Persona 3 just slightly beaten out Innocent Sin for that remake in a survey. Though now that I think about it, the development probably started a year before that survey was even a thing. But hopefully this game and the first two actually get a remake, because I do think these games deserve that, or hell, at least a port on modern systems. And I mean all 6, PS1 and PSP. It would be a neat time capsule, and I don't think you would have to fully localize Eternal Punishment for Western audiences. It would probably help considering the one here still isn't the best, but even then, people still shit on modern day dubs, but then again I can definitely see why. But I believe Persona The Origins would be fucking awesome. And this is coming from someone who's never fully played the PS1 titles until now. But yeah, I do believe they were worth at least one playthrough. Well, maybe not the Snow Queen quest, but even then, I still enjoyed my time with these games. It's a shame that there isn't legal ways to play them nowadays without paying an arm and a leg. It does not help that I will track them down one day because, yeah, I make horrible money choices. Like, I own way too much anime figures, a lot of them freeing figures, and for people who collect them, you know how expensive they can be. I own physical copies of both Persona 3 FES and Portable, not to mention Pandora's Tower in The Last Story. And speaking of the former, join me next time, my friends, as the Endless Tower awaits us with Shin Megami Tensei Persona 3. So please like, comment, and subscribe, share this video with anyone and anything, and that includes your next door neighbor, Guido Sardinia. Yes, really, and take care.
Guys, don't go. Don't leave me alone. Please, no. Please, no. No!